Okay, so let's continue our discussion of density. We talked first about what density is. Now, our essential question today is going to be how can density be used to determine if an object will sink or float in a liquid substance? So we're going to start putting our knowledge of density to the test here. So first off, we need to talk about the density of water. Now, the density of water, 1 milliliter of water, has a mass of 1 gram. So if we think about density and the units we use for density and how we do it, the density of water is 1 gram per milliliter. Each milliliter of water has a mass of 1 gram, 1 gram per milliliter. Something to note here that's going to be really important is that 1 gram per milliliter is exactly the same thing as 1 gram per cubic centimeter. Okay, some things we measure in milliliters, some things we measure in cubic centimeters, but those two units are actually the same, which means that if I have a density of 1 gram per milliliter, it's the same thing as 1 gram per cubic centimeter. By the way, I'm sorry if you hear my ceiling squeaking. I'm in my basement right now. So, did you know that it's actually easier to float in the ocean than it is to float in a lake? Well, that is true because salt water is in fact more dense than regular fresh water. If a liquid is more dense, it's going to be easier to float on top of it. So, fun fact, it is easier to float in the ocean than it is in a lake like Lake Michigan or something. So, if we know the density of a fluid, and if we also know the density of an object, we can predict whether the object will sink or float on the fluid. So this fishbowl here, can I put my face so it's going to be out of the way? This fishbowl here contains fresh water, so 1 gram per milliliter. Remember, objects with a lower density than the fluid are going to float. Their density is lower, so it's less dense, it's going to float. Objects with a higher density, objects that are more dense, are going to sink. Okay? Lower density things float, higher density things sink. So I've also got here a ping pong ball. Let's just make my face smaller. Let's just do that. I'll put my face back down here again. Perfect. Fit down there just fine. Got a ping pong ball here. This ping pong ball has a density of 0.084 grams per centimeter cubed. Remember that water has a density of 1 gram per centimeter cubed. So what do you think? Is a ping pong ball going to float or is it going to sink? Well, its density is lower than that of water. It's less dense, so it's going to float, right? Let's do the same thing with a glass marble. Remember our rules about floating and sinking. This glass marble has a density of 2.5 grams per centimeter cubed. That density is much higher than the density of the surrounding water, so this glass marble is going to sink to the bottom of the fishbowl. So let's recap. This is a pretty simple concept, right? How can density be used to determine if an object will sink or float in a fluid substance? Well, if the object is more dense, it will do what? Float or sink? It's going to sink. If the object is less dense, what's it going to do? It's going to float. Pretty simple. That's really all we need to know here. I think you guys can handle this one.